Finally tonight, reggae legend Jimmy Cliff has died. His family says the cause was complications following a seizure and pneumonia. A native son of Jamaica, a two-time Grammy winner, and a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He crossed many rivers to introduce reggae to the world. Tonight, fans are remembering the legendary Jimmy Cliff, who died at the age of 81.
The death of Jimmy Cliff did not only mark the end of a reggae legend, it opened a series of unresolved questions about his silent years. Why had his family remained quiet all this time? Only after his passing did his daughter, Lily Cliff, appear and reveal things that had never been known. Between glory and silence, what had truly happened? The story behind that legend will now be told in this video. Since 2020, Jimmy Cliff began to withdraw from the stage. The pandemic caused tours to be canceled and his body grew visibly weaker. When Jimmy Cliff received the Reggae Gold Award in Kingston, he had to use crutches to walk up to the podium. The photo from that day quickly spread across Jamaica. Fans understood that their idol was fighting against time and his own body. A year later, Jimmy underwent knee surgery and was forced to stop performing indefinitely. He moved to Montego Bay with his wife Latifah Chambers, living in a small seaside house. By 2023, Jimmy Cliff had almost disappeared from public life. According to a close friend of Jimmy Cliff, his health began to deteriorate rapidly at the beginning of 2024. Doctors diagnosed him with chronic pneumonia, and he had to use a breathing aid at home. In September 2025, his condition worsened. Jimmy was taken to the University Hospital of the West Indies in Kingston. Doctors said he remained conscious and often asked to listen to Many Rivers to Cross again. That song became the breath of his final days. On the morning of November 24th, the last convulsion came suddenly. Jimmy Cliff took his final breath in the arms of his family. World of Music is mourning the passing of reggae icon Jimmy Cliff. The singer passed away overnight following a battle with pneumonia, his family writing in a statement. According to his wife, the moment was strangely peaceful, only the sound of the heart monitor fading away. She said he left as gently as the wind. That afternoon, the family brought his body back to Montego Bay. Locals welcomed the funeral convoy with wildflowers and songs playing from small roadside speakers. The next day, thousands gathered in Kingston to bid farewell to Jimmy Cliff. The local authorities built a small memorial stage where young artists performed his old songs. Those close to him said that before he passed, Jimmy Cliff asked for a simple funeral with no speeches or elaborate rituals. He said, "Let the music be the final voice." His family honored that wish. The death of Jimmy Cliff closed one journey, but opened a wave of unanswered questions. Just days after the funeral, his only daughter stepped before the media, and she was the one who brought revelations that left all of Jamaica in silence. The truth from his daughter. Right after the funeral, Lily Cliff, the eldest daughter of Jimmy Cliff, appeared before the public. She was the only one in the family who agreed to speak to the press. In her first post, Lily wrote that her father chose to fight in silence, not wanting anyone's pity, only wishing to be remembered through music. On November 26th, she appeared on the national news program. On television, Lily spoke calmly, though her eyes were red. She confirmed that Jimmy Cliff had suffered from pneumonia, complicated by heart disease for 2 years, but he kept it secret because he didn't want to make others sad. According to Lily, during his time in Montego Bay, Jimmy continued to write music regularly. Even in poor health, he always kept a notebook beside his bed, jotting down every fleeting idea. She said, "He told me, if a man can no longer sing, let the song sing for him." Those lines later became the opening words of his unfinished memoir. Lily Cliff revealed that her father once planned to return to the stage in 2024, but his illness forced him to stop. In private conversations, he often talked about his old audiences in Kingston, about the days he sang in packed stadiums. Whenever he recalled them, he simply smiled and said, "My music is still there, only now I listen instead of sing." Regarding the rumors that Jimmy Cliff was disillusioned with the music industry, Lily did not deny them. She said her father once felt reggae had been commercialized and separated from its original spirit, but he never abandoned it, and chose silence to preserve the purity of his own faith. According to Lily, Jimmy once said that fame makes artists forget why they first began to sing. He He always believed that music must belong to the people, not the market. That attitude made some misunderstand him as distant, but to his family, it was his way of keeping the dignity of a creator. In the interview, Lily Cliff mentioned the draft memoir, Songs of the Soul. The handwritten manuscript, begun in 2010, contained fragments of thoughts about life, faith, and the fear of growing old. One passage read, "I sang for peace, but the world grows louder." The short sentence captured the soul of a man who had spent his life letting music speak his heart. Lily said that in his final days, Jimmy Cliff still asked to play the original recording of Many Rivers to Cross. She shared that the family remained silent throughout the funeral to honor his wishes. Jimmy had once told them that when he passed, there should be no grand ceremony, just let the sea and the music speak the rest. Lily said that was why they chose cremation and scattered his ashes into the sea at Montego Bay, the place where he had written his first song. In the following days, Jamaican media quoted her words without adding any commentary. Newspapers simply printed one short line, "Lily Cliff, the keeper of her father's final promise." From then on, the portrait of Jimmy Cliff became clearer, an artist who chose to depart in silence, letting music deliver his final farewell. After his daughter's words were heard, the public began to look back from the beginning. The journey of Jimmy Cliff was not just made of melodies, but of the footprint of a symbol who rose from the soil to the world stage. That story began in Somerton, where the boy James Chambers first lifted his voice in song. From Somerton to the world, Jimmy Cliff, born James Chambers in 1944, came from Somerton, a small rural village in Jamaica. His family was poor, but filled with music. And from a young age, Jimmy sang in the church choir and taught himself guitar using old bicycle brake wires. As a teenager, Jimmy Cliff showed an early desire to leave his hometown and pursue music. At 14, he moved to Kingston, living in a working-class neighborhood. During his first nights there, he sang in bars just to earn a meal. It was at one of those nights that producer Leslie Kong discovered him. His first song, Hurricane Haiti, was recorded shortly after. Its youthful rhythm and confident lyrics quickly topped the Jamaican charts. The song paved the way for Jimmy Cliff's entry into the music industry, beginning a career that would span nearly 6 decades. From 1965 to 1970, Jimmy released a series of ska and reggae recordings. Miss Jamaica and Wonderful World Beautiful People became signature tracks, spreading his name across the Caribbean. At the time, the press called him the young star of the tropics, a voice that gave reggae a new soul. Jimmy Cliff quickly became a symbol of Jamaica's post-independent spirit. He often told reporters that his music is a thank you to my homeland and the people where I was born. His songwriting reflected optimism, faith, and unity, the 3 pillars that gave reggae its strength. The year 1972 marked a turning point in his life. The film The Harder They Come premiered with Jimmy Cliff playing the lead role and performing the entire soundtrack. The story of a poor Jamaican man rising against social injustice moved audiences worldwide. The film brought reggae beyond borders, turning it into a global cultural symbol. That same year, the soundtrack album sold millions of copies, making Jimmy Cliff the face of the genre. He once said, "I don't want people to just hear reggae. I want them to hear Jamaica." The statement became his lifelong artistic declaration. Following that success, Jimmy toured the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. Everywhere he went, he was welcomed as a musical ambassador of a small but vibrant nation. His concerts were not just performances, but stories of freedom and human faith. By the mid-1970s, Jimmy Cliff had become a global icon. He sang about peace, racial equality, and the spirit of resistance among people of color. Critics described his voice as both powerful and quietly hopeful. During this period, he collaborated with several international musicians, including Joe Strummer and Elton John. Although he received offers from major record labels, Jimmy chose to remain independent, staying true to Jamaica's identity in his work. This choice preserved the authenticity of his music, even when it meant sacrificing greater fame. In the late 1970s, Jimmy Cliff returned home and organized a series of free performances for students and workers. During one concert in Kingston, he said, "Music should not be a privilege. It belongs to everyone." Thousands sang along, turning the event into a spontaneous citywide festival. For his immense contributions, the Jamaican government awarded him the Order of Merit, one of the nation's highest honors for artists. On stage, accepting the medal, Jimmy Cliff bowed his head and said, "This is not a reward for me, but for Jamaica." By the end of the 1970s, Jimmy Cliff had become a global symbol of reggae. Alongside the glory, he began to feel the weight of expectations and the contradictions within the music industry. That marked the beginning of a turbulent phase ahead, where light and darkness within him would walk side by side. From being reggae's brightest star, Jimmy Cliff gradually faced the shadows created by his own fame. Success had lifted him to the summit, but also forced him to live with conflicts no one could see. In the years that followed, his life turned toward a path of silence and solitude. Between glory and tragedy, in the early 1980s, he left Island Records after a copyright dispute. In an interview in London, Jimmy spoke slowly. "I love music, but I cannot love those who use it to sell dreams." After leaving the label, Jimmy moved to England. He continued recording, experimenting with new styles. Although his albums received positive reviews, sales declined. The press wrote that the reggae hero is searching for his own voice again. But for Jimmy, it was more than a career issue. It was a struggle with his own identity. By the mid-1980s, Jimmy Cliff began to withdraw from public life. He declined many interviews and rarely appeared before audiences. In a private conversation in 1985, Jimmy admitted that he had fallen into depression. Friends said Jimmy Cliff lived quietly in a small London apartment, spending his time reading and meditating. He had almost no contact with the music scene. During those years, solitude became his only companion. In 1991, Jimmy Cliff was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He attended the ceremony alone, bowed to thank the audience, and left immediately after receiving the award. After the ceremony, Jimmy returned to Jamaica in silence. He stayed for several months, revisiting Somerton and walking through Montego Bay, as if searching for old memories. Friends believe that trip marked the turning point that made him reevaluate his life. A year later, Jimmy left England and settled permanently in Jamaica to start over. By the late 1990s, Jimmy Cliff found new faith in religion. He embraced Islam and legally changed his name to Al-Hajj Naeem Bashir. In a rare public talk, he said that only through prayer did he learn what true peace felt like. Around this time, he remarried Latifah Chambers and had 2 children. As the new century began, Jimmy Cliff gradually returned to the community. He took part in charity projects and campaigns to preserve Jamaican culture. For him, music was no longer a stage, but a means of healing. His journeys across Africa and the Middle East were remembered as the travels of an inspirer rather than a star. During this decade, Jimmy Cliff served as a UNESCO Peace Ambassador. He appeared at many international conferences, speaking about the role of artists in connecting people. His slow, humble way of speaking conveyed the weight of experience rather than fame. In 2012, the album Rebirth was released, described by critics as a profoundly human comeback. His music during this period no longer carried the tone of rebellion, but became calmer and deeper, speaking of forgiveness, faith, and aging. Music magazines called it the autobiography of a survivor. After Rebirth succeeded, Jimmy Cliff rarely gave interviews. He lived simply in Montego Bay, spending most of his time with family. In a 2018 conversation, Jimmy Cliff said briefly, "Reggae is not dead. I just don't need to stand before the microphone anymore." The statement reflected his spirit in old age, calm, accepting, and still believing that music will live on even when the artist stepped back. After nearly 4 decades of upheaval, Jimmy Cliff chose peace as his resting place. But even though he left the stage, his voice never faded, because only after his passing did the world truly realize what he had given to Jamaica, a legacy that can never be replaced. The immortal legacy of an icon. After Jimmy Cliff's passing, his family confirmed that they were editing his memoir, Songs of the Soul. The book, written over more than a decade, chronicles his journey from his youth in Somerton to his final years. It is scheduled for release in 2026 as his official farewell to the audience. The Jamaican Ministry of Culture announced plans to build the Jimmy Cliff Cultural Center in Montego Bay. The design is simple, featuring the signature yellow, green, and red colors of reggae. Inside will be exhibits of instruments, manuscripts, and personal artifacts used by Jimmy Cliff throughout his career. According to the project committee, the center will also include a small stage for young artists to perform traditional reggae music. The idea was inspired by Jimmy's own words, "Music never dies as long as someone still wants to sing." His family agreed that this would keep his legacy alive. Somerton High School, where Jimmy once studied, renamed its music room Jimmy Cliff Hall. Inside, students hung his portrait beside the lyrics of Many Rivers to Cross. The principal said they wanted students to see that image every day and understand that a legend too came from humble beginnings. Many young Jamaican artists regard Jimmy Cliff as their first source of inspiration. Singer Coffee shared during a tribute concert, "Without Jimmy, reggae wouldn't have the place it holds today." Artists like Laya E.K. and Chronix also frequently mention him in interviews, calling him the one who planted the seeds for a new generation. Jimmy Cliff's family also announced the establishment of the Many Rivers Foundation. The foundation aims to fund music scholarships for underprivileged children in Jamaica. In a message to the press, Latifah Chambers wrote, "This is how he wanted to give back opportunities to the next generation." By the end of 2025, the foundation had already received thousands of applications. Most of Jimmy Cliff's ashes were scattered into the sea at Montego Bay, where he wrote many of his earliest songs. A small portion was placed in a seaside memorial engraved with the words, "He sang for freedom, he lived for love." Each evening, locals bring flowers, play his music, and stand quietly listening by the shore. In Kingston, radio stations still play Jimmy songs every morning. Old recordings echo between the sound of waves and sea breeze. For Jamaicans, it is a way to start the day with the resilient spirit he once embodied. One radio editor said, "As long as reggae lives, Jamaica still has Jimmy." In Montego Bay, a bronze statue of Jimmy Cliff is nearing completion. It depicts him as he appeared in The Harder They Come, his eyes gazing toward the horizon. The monument is expected to become a new cultural landmark, where visitors can not only take photos, but also learn about the history of reggae and the man behind it. Music scholars describe Jimmy Cliff as the bridge between the spirit of Jamaica and the world. His music transcended melody, becoming a message of freedom and compassion. Several universities in Jamaica have included his name in their popular culture studies programs online. Jimmy Cliff's old recordings continue to be shared millions of times. Songs created half a century ago still carry the pulse of the present. Young people listen to "You Can Get It If You Really Want" as a reminder of perseverance, while older generations hear in it the memories of their youth. Jimmy Cliff ended his 81-year journey in silence, but what he left behind will never rest. From a small village in Somerton to the world stage, he turned reggae into the language of faith and freedom. Today, Jamaica is not only remembering an artist, they're remembering a part of their history, a voice that once spoke for an entire nation. Jimmy Cliff's melodies still echo across the ocean, affirming that music can be immortal when it is born from the human soul. If you feel the spirit that Jimmy Cliff left behind, share this video so more people can learn about his journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the stories behind music legends with us. Leave a comment below. Which Jimmy Cliff song still echoes in your memory? Just days after the funeral, Lily Cliff, the reggae icon's eldest daughter, stepped forward as the sole family member willing to speak to the press. Her appearance broke the silence and confirmed many of the rumors regarding her father's reclusive final years. Lily confirmed that Jimmy Cliff intentionally chose to retreat from the public eye to fight his private battles, driven by two key factors: health and secrecy. She confirmed that her father had suffered for 2 years from chronic pneumonia, complicated by heart disease. He kept the secret because he did not want to make others sad or seek pity, wishing only to be remembered through his music. A creator's dignity. Despite his poor health, he continued to write music regularly in Montego Bay, keeping a notebook by his bedside. Lily quoted him as saying, "If a man can no longer sing, let the song sing for him." This principle drove his silence. He preferred to listen to his own music rather than perform in his weakened state. Lily did not deny the rumors that Jimmy Cliff had become disillusioned with the commercial music industry. Commerce versus soul. She confirmed that he felt reggae had become commercialized and separated from its original spirit. Music for the people. He believed that fame often made artists forget their initial purpose. He often stated that music must belong to the people, not the market. His choice of solitude and silence was a way for him to preserve the dignity of a creator and the purity of his faith in the art form. Lily confirmed that the family's silence during the funeral was a direct fulfillment of Jimmy Cliff's final wishes. Simple ceremony. He requested a simple funeral with no speeches or elaborate rituals, stating, "Let the music be the final voice." To honor this wish, the family chose cremation and scattered his ashes into the sea at Montego Bay, the location where he had written some of his earliest songs. His instruction was simply to let the sea and the music speak the rest. Lily revealed the existence of her father's unfinished handwritten draft memoir, Songs of the Soul, which was started in 2010. The manuscript contained fragments of his introspective thoughts, including the powerful line, I sang for peace, but the world grows louder. The memoir is scheduled for release in 2026 as his official farewell to his audience. Following her interview, the Jamaican media praised Lily Cliff as the keeper of her father's final promise, cementing his image as an artist who chose to depart in silence, letting his art deliver his final message.